in order to remain thin, will overdance in order to keep their weight down.
Would you call him a good patient?
I thought he was a great patient. Michael at one time had an addiction, and he went to England and he withdrew that addiction in a secure setting where he went off of drugs altogether. And what I told Michael when I met him in this present situation when I was seeing him,
Dr. Arnold Klein treated Michael for 27 years and legally could release the files that would end every debate about his appearance. But in his final interview before dying, he said there are some truths the world isn't ready for. The medical records exist. They're documented, catalogued, and stored somewhere in Los Angeles. They contain prescriptions, diagnoses, photographs, and handwritten notes spanning nearly 3 decades. They could answer every question about Michael Jackson's changing face, his skin condition, his pain management, and the procedures that transformed one of the most recognizable people on earth into someone his own family struggled to recognize. And the man who held those records refused to show them. Arnold Klein wasn't just any dermatologist. He was a pioneer in cosmetic procedures, the dermatologist to Hollywood's elite, and he became something far more complicated to Michael Jackson. He was confidant, enabler, and according to some, the man who started Michael down a path he could never return from. Their relationship began in 1983, when Michael walked into Klein's office with patches of lighter skin appearing on his hands. It was supposed to be a simple consultation about a skin condition. It turned into a dependency that would last until Michael's death. Klein had the power to end decades of speculation with a single press conference. He could have shown the vitiligo diagnosis records. He could have detailed every procedure, every treatment, every prescription. Other doctors violated patient confidentiality to speak about Michael after his death. Klein had legal cover as executor of his own practice, and Michael's estate didn't aggressively fight disclosure. Yet Klein chose silence on the specifics, while dropping cryptic hints in interviews that only deepened the mystery. Why protect a dead patient unless the truth was more disturbing than the rumors? To understand Klein's silence, you have to understand what happened inside that Beverly Hills office. Michael's visits became ritualistic. He'd arrive through back entrances, sometimes disguised, sometimes with children in tow. The appointments grew longer. What started as dermatology visits transformed into something that looked more like therapy sessions, business meetings, and pharmacy runs combined into one. Klein's staff watched Michael arrive healthy and leave sedated. They watched the bills pile up into hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they watched Klein's role evolve from physician to something they couldn't quite define. Debbie Rowe worked as Klein's assistant and eventually became Michael's second wife. She later testified that Klein's office was where Michael received propofol, the anesthetic that would eventually kill him, years before Dr. Conrad Murray ever entered the picture. She described a system where Michael's pain, whether physical or psychological, was met with pharmaceutical solutions. Klein administered Demerol regularly. The records would show how regularly. They'd show dosages, frequencies, and whether the prescriptions matched legitimate medical need or dependency management. But here's what makes the records truly explosive. Klein didn't just treat Michael's skin. He performed procedures that he later admitted pushed ethical boundaries. In interviews, he hinted at surgeries, experimental treatments, and interventions that went beyond standard dermatological care. He suggested that Michael's changing appearance wasn't solely the result of vitiligo and lupus, as the official narrative claimed, but also a combination of treatments that spiraled beyond their original intent. The records would detail exactly how far beyond. They'd show whether Michael was informed, whether he consented under clear mind, and whether Klein continued treatments even when Michael's mental state made true consent questionable. Those are the pages Klein ensured would never see daylight. After Michael's death in 2009, Klein gave a series of bizarre interviews. He appeared on Larry King Live, Good Morning America, and various entertainment shows. He cried on camera. He claimed Michael was the love of his life. He showed photographs of their friendship, but never the medical files. He'd reference the records, mention specific dates and treatments, then pull back just before revealing anything concrete. It was a performance designed to suggest he knew everything while documenting nothing. Legal experts noted Klein had multiple pathways to release the records if he chose. Patient confidentiality extends beyond death, but exceptions exist for public interest, estate settlement, and criminal investigations. Michael's estate could have blocked release, but they were focused on protecting Michael's earning potential, not his medical history. The DEA and LAPD had already subpoenaed Klein's records during the Conrad Murray investigation. Those records existed in official hands, yet Klein maintained his public silence even as he monetized his relationship with Michael through media appearances. The inconsistencies in Klein's statements across interviews reveal why the records stayed hidden. On Larry King, he claimed Michael had serious health issues beyond what the public knew. On Good Morning America, he downplayed Michael's drug use. In a TMZ interview, he suggested Michael was far more chemically dependent than anyone admitted. In an ABC special, he walked back those claims. Each interview contradicted the last. The medical records would establish one consistent truth. They'd expose which version of Klein was lying. More importantly, they'd expose Klein's own role in Michael's deterioration. You don't hide records that exonerate you. You hide records that implicate you. Klein's financial relationship with Michael adds another dimension to the mystery. Records show Michael paid Klein's practice millions of dollars over their decades together. Some bills were for legitimate dermatological treatments, others were harder to classify. Klein's office became a place where Michael could escape, where he'd be administered medications that made hours disappear, where the outside world couldn't reach him. Former staff members described it as less of a medical office and more of a sanctuary where Michael's needs, whatever they were, would be met without judgment or refusal. This created a dynamic where Klein needed Michael as much as Michael needed Klein. The revenue from Michael's treatments funded Klein's lifestyle, his research, and his status in Beverly Hills medical circles. When Michael was preparing for the This Is It concert series, he was visiting Klein's office multiple times per week. The timing of these visits, their duration, and what occurred during them became crucial questions during the Conrad Murray trial. Murray's defense suggested Michael's death wasn't caused solely by what happened the night he died, but by a long-term pattern of pharmaceutical dependence that Klein helped establish. Klein denied this vehemently. He painted himself as trying to help Michael while others enabled him. But he never produced the records that would prove his version of events. He never showed prescription logs demonstrating restraint. He never released treatment notes showing he'd warned Michael about dependency or refused inappropriate requests. The absence of this exonerating evidence suggests it doesn't exist. And if Klein was prescribing to Michael the way former employees described, those records wouldn't show a doctor trying to help. They'd show a doctor who couldn't say no to the patient funding his empire. That's a truth that doesn't just damage reputation. In California, that's a truth that ends medical licenses and triggers criminal liability. 3 months before Klein died in 2015, he gave his final detailed interview to a documentarian who was investigating Michael's death. The footage wasn't widely released, but transcripts later emerged. Klein was 70, his own health failing, and he seemed to oscillate between wanting to confess and wanting to protect his legacy. He said something that's haunted everyone who's studied this case. He said Michael's appearance changes weren't just about vitiligo treatment or burn reconstruction from the Pepsi commercial. He said Michael came to him wanting to disappear from who he was, and Klein helped him do exactly that. According to Klein's final interview, Michael's request became increasingly untethered from medical necessity. He wanted his skin uniformly light, not for vitiligo treatment, but because he believed it would make him more universally accepted. He wanted his features refined beyond reconstruction into something that matched an image in his mind that Klein described as unattainable and heartbreaking. Klein admitted he continued treatments even when he knew they were driven by body dysmorphia rather than medical need. he admitted that the line between helping Michael and enabling his psychological deterioration became impossible to distinguish. Then Klein said something even more disturbing. He suggested that Michael's children, particularly Paris, were conceived using donor material, and that Klein himself might be the biological father. He provided no proof, and the claim was widely dismissed as the ramblings of a dying man seeking attention. But it revealed how blurred the boundaries had become between doctor and patient, between professional care and personal entanglement. If Klein believed he was biologically connected to Michael's children, his refusal to release medical records takes on a different dimension. Those records wouldn't just detail treatments, they'd document a relationship that violated every ethical standard of medical practice. They'd show that Klein wasn't protecting Michael's privacy. He was protecting himself from the exposure of a professional relationship that had metastasized into something indefensible. Arnold Klein died of a heart attack in October 2015. His estate inherited the medical records. They remain sealed. Michael's estate has never aggressively pursued their release. Neither has Klein's family. The records sit in storage, a time capsule of choices that two men made together, one seeking transformation and one providing it without the boundaries that should exist between physician and patient. The public debate about Michael's appearance continues. People argue about vitiligo, about plastic surgery, about self-hatred and transformation. They argue without the one source that could end the debate definitively. Klein took his detailed knowledge to the grave, but he left behind enough hints to construct the outline of what happened. A patient with body dysmorphia and unlimited resources met a doctor willing to push ethical boundaries. Together they embarked on a transformation that was part medical necessity, part psychological compulsion, and part enabling relationship that neither could stop. Klein's refusal to show the records wasn't about protecting Michael's dignity. Dead patients don't experience embarrassment. It was about protecting himself from accountability for his role in Michael's transformation and decline. The records would show how often he saw Michael, what he prescribed, what procedures he performed, and whether he ever said no when medical ethics required it. They document whether he recognized addiction and dependency or whether he profited from it. They'd reveal whether he was the caring physician he claimed to be in interviews or the enabler that former staff described. The truth sits in those sealed files. And maybe Klein was right. Maybe we're not ready for what they contain. Or maybe the world is ready, but Klein's legacy isn't. Either way, the records remain hidden, and the questions remain unanswered. If you found this documentary compelling, consider subscribing. We examine the mysteries that surround the most famous lives and the secrets that some people take to their graves.